Today, we're going to be learning how to make our very first sprite using Aseprite and some classic Final Fantasy II sprite characters. So the very first thing you want to do is boot up Aseprite, and typically the old school characters from, say, about Final Fantasy II used to be in 16 by 16 pixels, and that's what we're going to be using today. So I've opened up a new sprite, but instead of using 16 by 16, I'm actually going to do 18 by 18, and that's going to give us the ability to create a border around all sides, and we can use that border as a guide to make sure that our proportions are correct in this first tutorial video. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And you can see this is a very tiny square. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to set my grid, and I'm going to set my grid with 1 pixel by 1 pixel, and you can see this blue overlay. Now, I want to show you the type of sprites that I'm going to be doing. These sprites basically have a very large head, and that's going to be kind of the style that we're doing. Something like this girl right here, Lila, we're going to have a sprite design very similar to her. Okay, so if you're trying to find this particular sprite sheet, you want to go and search for Final Fantasy II sprite sheet, and you're going to get something along these lines. So let's get back to Aseprite, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create my guide border. I'm going to use my rectangle tool, and I don't want that one. I'm going to use white. So I'm going to go ahead and use white right there, and I also am going to use orange along this side right here, and I'm going to have 1, 2, 3 on my 4th pixel up from the orange. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to have this yellow pixel, and this is going to form a bit of a guide. Okay, so let's take a look at our first steps into drawing our dude. So I'm going to start by drawing his face, and what I'm going to do for that is I'm going to try to center it, so I may have to move this around and draw 4 pixels, then 1 diagonally on each side, and then 1, 2, 1, 2, those are going to be his eyes. Then I'm going to draw 1, right click to get rid of that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you should see his face now abouts. Alright, the next step, and the reason we have this guide, is these 3 pixels right here, this whole area, make up his torso, okay, his arms and his chest. And these bottom 3 pixels right here, these are going to make up his legs, okay? The rest of the stuff up here is going to make up his hair. Now, the reason why the head is so oversized is because these pixels were so small, you wanted to have a real expression being able to be conveyed through old school game art. And so they oversized the head. The head makes up most of the body in this style of pixel art. So here we go. Let's start working on that arm. I think I may actually need to move it over, so I'm going to go ahead and use my marquee tool, and if you're in this position, you will have to do this as well. So I'm just going to move it over 1 pixel. Alright, so I have this one right here. It's going to go 2 pixels wide, and then down by 1, and then 1, 2, over, and it's going to make a little L, over and down, 1, 2, and then I have 1, 2, 3, 4. They kind of match these 4 right here. Go back up, and then I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, and 2, 2, and then 1, 2, and 3. Perfect. So the way this is, you can kind of see this even right now. This arm is out to the side and kind of behind his body, and this is actually his fist right here. Okay? Alright. Next up, we're going to draw his legs. I'm going to draw him in the middle of a running motion. So I'm going to draw it down from here. 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay. And I draw this down from the middle of his fist, and likewise his first leg, 3, and this leg right here is kind of behind his body, whereas this leg's right in the front. Alright, so now we have legs on this guy. Okay, next up we're going to do his hair. Now, I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut down the size of his face by 1 pixel, because his hair is going to be a really big part of his character. You're going to see in a second. I have this coming out the middle right here. 1, 2, and 3. And as soon as we have this hair done, you're going to really see what this guy, like, it's going to start to really pop up and make sense. All right, 1, 3. There. I think I might have it. Okay. So get the hair as close as you can to this likeness right here. And he's really going to start to pop out as soon as we add some color. It should come with some presets. Yeah. There we go. Let's see if we can find some good presets. Let's Google UE. Oh, perfect. We'll use the classic NES palette right there. Done. Okay, go back to here, and we are kind of looking for a peachy skin color. So maybe we'll try this right here. Okay, all right, so let's start. It's a little light. Let's start putting in that color into our guy. Okay. There we go. Alright, now we're going to need to have some hair color. I'm not entirely sure if I like this palette, so I may change the preset here. Game Boy Color. Alright, let's try that one. Load. That's pretty pink for skin color. Alright, let's try this one right here. A lot better. So original Game Boy Color. I actually used to have one of these. I played a lot of Pokemon on it. And also played a few other games. Pokemon was my favorite. I played Pokemon Silver. Original Game Boy Color Pokemon Silver. Way back in the day. Okay, so we're going to give him a white shirt. So we'll put him, so white shirt in the middle. And do a brown hair. I'll leave that gap in his hair. It's kind of like a part. So when you have pixel art this small, it's actually quite easy to go ahead and do some of the art. I'm going to use the same color for his shoes as his hair. And you can see that hair right there. And let's give him some blue jeans. Alright, take a look at our guy. We have ourselves an actual single frame of animation Final Fantasy II style sprite. Okay, let's take a look at our next step here. So it appears that shading is actually fairly simple, but you need to know what you're doing. We're at the step now where you need to start shading. So the first thing that you want to make sure is you have your pencil tool selected. Go over to your top left area where you have your brush size and the type of ink. What you need to do next is click on Alpha Compositing. And what this does is it changes the opacity or how dark or light something is going onto your page. And what you're going to use is you're going to use black and you're going to use white. And because you're changing this value right here, you're going to change how dark or how light black or white's going to go on. You want to use black when you're shading or white when you're lightening. So, for example, if I am going to use black, you can see that, so I'll select black, I have the opacity at 168 out of 255. You can see it's actually quite dark. I don't quite want that, but I'm going to add some texture to his hair by adding in kind of maybe around 60-ish%. And I'm going to kind of play around, kind of think about the, you know, this is the underside of his hair, maybe I'll do it a little darker. And what that does is it just applies a black value over top of the existing color. And it does actually stack up, so you can see that if I click, the more I click, the darker it gets. So I'm actually going to do that a little bit. And so I'm starting to add a little bit of that texture to his hair. And I'm also going to do the same thing by adding highlights to his hair. So I'm going to lighten it by adding a few things like that. That one's a little close to his skin, so maybe I'll have something like that. Just a few things like that. There you go. So he's got some texture on his hair. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing with his arms. Only this time I'm actually just using shading. So I am going to shade part of his arm right here. And it's kind of, whenever I'm shading, I'm thinking of the light source and where that's coming from. So right now I'm imagining that the light source is on this side. So that means the shadows are on the opposite side, over on this side of the arm. So now when I go through and I take a look at how I'm going to shade the face, that's right there, and then I'm going to do underneath that hair on that side. Okay, and then I'm going to shade basically his one half of his shirt. Okay, there we go. Also shade his pantaloons and the part of his leg that's running away. Okay. Actually make that another dark. So I'm going to click it again. And that kind of gives me a sense of a character who's got some texture. Okay, so now we have a fully shaded, textured character. He looks a lot more lifelike than when we began. Okay. What I'm next going to do is I'm going to start animating him. And animating him is fairly easy. First thing we're going to do is press the key Tab. Okay. And it's going to bring up your animation panel. Now we want to have a new cell. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to right click and we're going to hit duplicate cells. And what we've done is we've created 2 frames of animation. Okay, now we're only working with 1 layer today, so we're not too worried about that. So we're going to work on this second frame of animation. What we're going to do is we're going to try to reverse our selection here. So we want the hair to stay in the same place. So I want to make sure that your selection, oh, I squished him. I want to make sure that the selection that we have here is going to be kind of from below his hair, because that's the part that's really moving. There you go. Sorry, it was under Edit, Flip Horizontal. Okay. Alright, so now you can see that we have flipped our guy. But we have a bit of a dilemma. We want him to basically have matching shadows. And if we remember, the light's coming from over here. So that basically means that we're going to want to repaint and then repaint the arms, the legs, and the shirt. So it's basically echoing the same shadow, right? So let's go over there, and then we're just going to use our color picker, make sure that we're keeping the same color that we've carefully developed. Okay, so I'm going to go do that. Just going to flip back and forth. Really, I think I'm going to put the shadow right there. And I might color the underside of the arm. There we go. And then I'm just going to go back to the first frame, get my color picker, get that gray, and then I am going to go and color in pants just right. I think I'm pretty happy with this. So let's take a look at a preview here. Zoom in. Play. Look at them go. Alright. So I think at this point it's worth talking about this 2-frame animation's kind of pretty fast. Now what we're going to do is we can actually change the duration of the milliseconds. So I might actually change how fast he's running. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to quadruple the time. So I'm going to do 400 milliseconds. So if I go there and I go to preview, and it looks like he's kind of jerky because he's moving back. That means that second frame I also want to change to 400. There we go. So take a look at that preview and you get a good sense of what's going on. Alright, well, I'm going to add in another frame to create it more of a walking style. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go and right click and duplicate the cell. That's going to move. And take a look at that second cell. Okay. And what I'm going to do here is I want to have kind of an in-between standing drawing. So I'm going to work on trying to get this going down a little bit. I'm going to change the drawing so it looks like his arms are down by his side, as is his pants. So take a look. Okay, so what I've done is I've created 4 frames. The first frame is the first running position that we've worked on. The second is the standing. The third is the mirror of that first position with our new shading. And then the fourth one is the standing guy again. And you can see in the preview that he is kind of going back and forth at a walking pace. And ladies and gentlemen, that's it. That's basically how you can create your first walking sprite.